Welcome to the CA Capacity Management Community Webcast. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. I will now turn the call over to Jim Lundy. Please go ahead, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jim Lundy, your User Community President for the Capacity Group. I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us this morning. I'd also like to thank John Ashby and Mike Zhang for putting this webcast together and all the work that they've done on the newer product. Behind the scenes, they've done a lot of work for enhancements, and Mike Zhang will start off with what's coming up. Mike?
All right, thanks, Jim. Again, this is Mike. Today's topic will be focusing on the demonstrate the new features in the just released CCC 2.4. And we'll also take a preview of the upcoming current capacity reporter 1.5 release. There's some nice incremental reports that John Ashby will demonstrate. At the end, I may have some time to talk a little bit about one item that I showed last time on the roadmap. We're not going to demonstrate that today, but I may talk to some of the product direction, which is related to the unified reporting platform. So let me see, how do I move the, oh, I see, I need to share. Okay, I share my desktop. All right. So real quick, the marquee features we introduced in CCC VPM 2.4 include Capacity Manager, performance enhancement. We talked about that. And I think John Ashby will be able to demo some of the features related to CCC, which includes the interactive charting navigation, training support, and some of the authentication feature we introduced. I don't think we'll be able to demonstrate partitioning support. It's just the back-end performance enhancement using the partitioning feature. I would turn the presentation. As a matter of fact, John, do you want to demo CCC VPM first, or you want me to talk about the CCR report and you demo everything at the end?
I'll go through CCC and then we'll transition into the CCR updates.
Sounds good. So I turn the presentation to you.
All right. My name is John Ashby with the Engineering Services Group, and appreciate everyone carving some time out. So without further ado, what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the new additions on the CCC side. Then we'll go get into some of the additions from a CCR perspective, and then we'll open things up for Q&A at the end. So that being said, one of the major updates or changes, I guess, that you'll see from a CCC perspective is the addition of an authentication screen. So this is actually managed via CCR, and I wasn't going to go through the actual setup and the configuration. However, when you're going through the implementation and establishing connectivity between Data Manager and CCC, you will notice that this login and authorization screen will now appear with the CCC portal. So as a couple of major enhancements in regards to just general usability, my favorite, and I know a number of the customers that I work with, some of the features that they've really taken hold of is the new time widget. And if you're logged into CCC, what you'll notice is that if you are to right-click and scan over a specified period, you'll now see we have a marker, and as soon as I let go of my mouse, you'll notice a dialog box that appears where you have various options, whether you wanted to trend to a selection, a time period selection, or if you wanted to change the time increment that you're looking at. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to zoom into a selection, and you'll note that now what we're looking at is the time period that I had highlighted in the previous screen. And once you're kind of on a specific screen, you'll notice that not only being able to change the time period that's being displayed, or either zoom in or zoom out for a period, you also have the ability to scroll in either direction. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to come over here to 4.6. And I'm going to center this. So what that will allow me to do is to place a specific time period, so that if you're looking to focus on a specific period, that you can do so relatively easily. Now, from a charting perspective, the one thing I did want to draw to everyone's attention is that now within CCC, one of the things that you'll notice is that for each interval that you're looking at, not only are we surfacing the resource score, which is our normalized capacity unit, but you'll also notice that we've added utilization, which is effectively the same value just converted to a percentage, which is a very nice addition in being able to translate that to a number relative to total capacity. And as I drill in, one of the things that you'll notice on the additional charts is that for our server listing charts, you'll see that we now have these percentages exposed both from an average as well as a percentile. So you'll be able to get what the total capacity or resource score. So let me just sort this here by capacity, and you'll see that for all of the servers, we'll see these utilization values for both our average and the planning percentile value, which would be set by the user in their respective CCC instance. And these values persist all the way down to an individual server. So if I were to drill into, let's say, this USILCC server, you'll note that now, let me just return here, pick another server with some data, and you'll note that our percentages are persistent all the way through. Additionally, these percentages now appear in our optimization charts, and you can see that as I mouse over each category. So here I'm looking at the good or those assets that fall within a 20 to 60% utilization, and I can see that 29% of my assets fall within that category, and 71% are in an under state for this particular interval. So you'll note that we've exposed these percentages, which helps with general interpretation of the charts for sure. And so to kind of switch back to our usage, one of the feature additions within CCC, and that's associated with this new time widget, is the fact that we can trend or create a trend line that is specific to the selected interval of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the option to create a trend here, and you can see that based upon that interval that I've selected, you'll note that highlighted in the dark red is my trend baseline, and in the light, I guess we could call this orange, you can see the projection in the future. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to move right, and what that will allow me to do is actually very easily kind of scroll or in actually any direction on this particular chart. But one of the other things I did want to note is that we have loosened our baseline period, so now you'll actually be able to view more than just a 90-day interval within the CCC chart, which is obviously useful whenever we're looking at performing trends or trending activities. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover for the CCC editions, and now what I'll do is we'll transition here and we'll take a look at some of the updates as it relates to CCR. Okay. So now the first thing that most of you might be asking yourself is, wait, this looks a little bit different than my current CCR implementation, and you would be correct. So one of the additions that we've made is we have an administrative console here by which we can modify some of the global settings that are associated with the CCR instance. And one of the additions that we've made for the update is we've added additional CSS directories that will allow you to change the theme as needed. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in here and update this to the CCR, and what we should see here is that we'll notice that the general look, feel, and aesthetic is going to match what you currently have today. But for the purposes of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with the CA. For whatever reason, I kind of like the light blue aesthetic, but just note that leveraging this console, not only can you change the theme, you can actually modify a lot of the other standard settings associated with the instance, including the name, any images that are referenced for emails, and miscellaneous other parameters that can be controlled via this administration panel. And we'll have a listing of all of these individual parameters and what they control in the updated release notes for the CCR 1.5 release. So you'll be able to take advantage of this console as needed. So what I wanted to talk about are some of the new chart types and functionalities associated with the various charts. And I guess probably some of my favorite are some of the new just bar charts. And we've used these sparingly in the past, but I've really taken a liking to these the new bar charts. And the one thing that you'll notice is that with these new charts, not only do we have the ability to surface the underlying data in the tooltips, and you can see right here where I'm looking at the utilization and headroom for a series of virtual machines that are at risk, but you also have the ability to create legends that are associated with the various bar charts and reports. And we have these new charts for kind of risk and waste, and you can see kind of some examples here for virtual machines. And these will be additional reports that are made available for both physical, virtual, including VMware and AIX, and all other system platforms. Now, one of the additions that we've made with the CCR 1.5 is that we have added in Data Manager configuration parameters that are associated with these various threshold charts. And what I mean by threshold charts is that our days to threshold, our exception reports, and our risk and waste reports, they're now leveraging the new thresholds so that as a user you can come in and change what the threshold settings are for a specific set or series of charts. So what I'm going to do here is actually refresh this because I believe that it's going to bump me out, which it did. So what I'm going to do is go into my Data Manager instance, and go to my global parameters, and you can see that I've got a number of thresholds. And what I wanted to do just to demonstrate this functionality is I'm going to change my high threshold to something ridiculously low, like 10%, and I'm going to save this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here, and if you'll notice right now I don't have any risk VMs, but since I changed my threshold parameter, I should see this chart populate, which it does. So you can see that all of the systems that are violating a specified threshold that I'll now see, and then we can see the very low numbers here as well within these particular charts. And again, this is native within Data Manager today, and with the 1.5 release, you'll be able to modify and change these features and apply those to the respective charts. And again, this is applicable for days to threshold, exceptions, risk and waste, and that can be extended to any other chart or charts for that matter. So we're not bound to just these parameters. So if you find that you'd like to add additional let's say, for example, a number of customers have asked, that we provide these for different platform types, and we can very easily add those to the list of parameters if needed. All right. So next, what I wanted to touch on are some of the new Heatmap reports, and we have iterations of these reports in the existing version, but what we have done is we've added to the individual system landing pages. So where actually I'm right now in the product is I'm looking at a specific virtual machine, and one of the views that we've added is the addition of a hourly Heatmap report for an individual system. And so what we're looking at is a 30-day historical period, and what you can see is that each row we're looking at the average and percentile value for a specific virtual machine, and what you'll notice here is that we have a 24-hour interval, and you can see I'm missing some data right here by the gray, but we can see that generally speaking this virtual machine is relatively low from a utilization perspective. And the nice thing about this is that whatever your setting is from a historical period, so if I were to change this to the last 3 months, I would effectively have 90 rows, in each row representing an individual day. So you can get a nice view, historical view of the usage and consumption for the system associated. And again, we've added these charts for virtual machines, logical partitions, as well as physical servers. So these will now be available to the individual system landing pages. All right, so to move on to some of the other reports, one of the changes that we've recently added or implemented or updated is additions to our gap reports. So many times as a user, I'm spending time trying to figure out if I'm missing data for servers, and if so, how much and what days. And in order to help facilitate that process, what we've created is a listing of systems or report that will provide the user with a listing of virtual or actually instances. So the nice thing about this report is that it is group and context aware, so that if I were to come in and modify this, and let's say I want to look at just my VBlock, I can apply that and it will filter this list down to just those systems that are associated with my VBlock infrastructure. And you can see that what we're surfacing is the total number of days of data that have been aggregated, and then of that period of time, how many days are complete, because really what I'm trying to figure out is I want to know not really, which systems are complete, but I more or less want to know, well, where am I missing data? And more importantly there is what days am I missing information for specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this virtual machine, and what you'll see now is that I will have a daily gap report, which again, this is a slightly different version of what we currently have in the product today, except that it's for a single server. And what I can see is that I can see the missing days for my daily data. So I can see this here for each individual day. So each block represents a day. And then down here, you'll note that for the different days that I have selected, I can see each row which represents a day, and I can view which hours specifically I'm missing data for. So if I were to expand this to, let's say, like 30 days, what I should see is an increase in the number of rows available, and I'll have both a monthly view of my daily as well as hourly data availability. So this should ease the pain of the process in determining when, if, where, and how do I have data. So I'm hoping that this will be as useful to everyone that's on the line as it has been for me. And again, we'll be adding this to our diagnostic report set. All right, so last but certainly not least, one of the, I guess this would probably be my favorite addition. And so in the past couple of months, we have been working on a series of reports that will very quickly enable or allow a user to look at a large grouping of virtual assets and be provided with a list of recommendations and changes for a specified system based upon a selected interval of time. So what we have is we have created a series of Resize recommendation reports. So now what I'm actually looking at is I've selected a 30-day interval, and I have a list of all of my virtual machines. And then for this particular instance, I'm looking at all groups, but if I wanted to, I could look at a subset of systems. And what we're going to provide is a baseline recommendation as to a potential opportunity to resize. And one of the things that I wanted to note is that as a function of this report, the recommendations are actually made independently of each other. So we look at the utilization values for both CPU and memory, and then based upon those values, which again, the thresholds can be adjusted as needed. If they are in violation of a specified threshold, we will provide a recommendation on either an increase, is what you can see here, as well as decrease, and again, dependent upon what the utilization values are for the specified interval, you'll be provided with a list and recommendation of the appropriate size based upon the reported values for our CPU and our memory. Now, one thing to note, we are surfacing the storage information, and we're not providing a recommendation. However, we're actively working on enhancing that and adding that to the list of recommendations for this particular report. Now, one of the additional features, and again, this is one of the things that as a user I wanted to surface, is that if we're making or providing change recommendations for these various systems and the fact that we're dealing with virtualized assets, I wanted to be able to look at or determine what the current allocation for a cluster is, both for the virtual CPU as well as the virtual RAM, because as most of you, if you're responsible for administering or managing the virtual infrastructure, if we're making, change recommendations and we're already working with a cluster that's over-allocated, then we could run the risk of perpetuating a potential bad situations. And so I wanted to be able to surface all of this information. And the nice thing about these reports is that they can be scheduled by group. You can specify the time period, and from a performance perspective, they're very quick, and there's a lot of great information that can be derived from these reports. Now, what we're looking at here is a listing of all virtual machines. And one of the updates and changes that we've made is that if I were to select this cluster, one of the things that you'll note is that we will provide a summary of or for the current state of the cluster. So what you can see here is a summarized table of the current allocations, both from a vCPU perspective as well as a percentage. You can look at the current allocation, both from a gigabyte memory as well as a percent. We can view the current cluster utilization values for our CPU and memory. We have a reported VM to host ratio, which right now we're looking at 75:1, and we can see what the total CPU and memory capacities that are available for this particular grouping or set of assets. Now, what we've also provided is a post-size optimization summary, if you will. And effectively what we're doing is we're going through and we're providing a summary of all of the change recommendations so that we can see the change in the number of vCPUs based upon the increase or decrease in resize for the individual virtual machines that are included as part of this particular report. And we can look at the optimized assets as it relates to what would be doled out. So you can see that if we were to implement some of these changes, we could reclaim a fair bit of resources, both from a memory as well as a CPU perspective. And we can see that we could, reduce the number of vCPUs as well as reclaim a substantial amount of memory that's currently been allocated to the systems. And again, this is contextual, so it will be applicable for a specific cluster, as well as this report here, which will provide us with the information on the virtual machines that are associated with a specified cluster. And again, there is a lot of information that's kind of listed, and I'm looking forward to feedback from our users in regards to additional data points or potentially changes in data points as it relates to the details that we're surfacing here. Okay, and so actually one other thing I guess I spoke too early when I said that saving the best for last. Some of the additional additions would be extensions of our current AIX report offering. And what I'll do is I'm going to switch gears slightly, and what we're going to do is kind of talk about some of the new reports and report views that are available for the AIX platform. And so one of the things that you'll note is that some of the reports that you're going to see here are very similar to what you have out of the box today. The only differentiation is that we're going to be adding additional views. And let me just go ahead and log back in here to our various landing pages. So what I'm going to do here is I want to look at the last week. So let me just come in here and do something like the 17th. And you'll note that now we have some new landing pages for our frames. So what we've done in some of the new reports is we're leveraging some of the daily and hourly roll-up values and taking our LPAR consumptions and rolling those up to an aggregate so that we could look at an entire frame. So what we have here is we're looking at the consumption of this particular frame for more or less a 7-day period, and we can see what the daily consumption values are, and below here we have our hourly consumption values. And one of the things I did want to point out and note is that what we're providing today is we are not getting frame level metrics. We are making some assumptions here and aggregating the usage for the individual LPAR. So I did want to make sure that I was clear in what we're accomplishing. But again, most of our customers were collecting all LPARs that are associated with a frame. So that being said, we can make a general assessment on the overall utilization and usage for the specific frame. So you'll notice that we've got our risk and waste reports, and here I've got my utilization. I can see the LPAR cores associated, and in this particular, we don't have any LPARs that are stressed or at risk. And one of the things that we've also added are a series of stacked area charts. So what we have here is a ranking of the top consumers or LPARs that reside on this particular frame, and you can see that here we're looking at our daily averages, and we can see our top LPARs, and we can view here right below this, these are the associated LPARs that are tied to this specific daily chart. And one of the things that I've done is I've provided calculations that will give you utilization values that are both respective to the LPAR and its entitlement, as well as relative to the frame. And in both of the tabular charts here, you'll notice that we've surfaced both of those. The only difference is that here we're leveraging our hourly roll-ups, and in this chart we're using the daily roll-ups. And you can see the difference in the fidelity in the charts here between our daily and hourly values. So we'll be able to provide kind of our top consumers. Now, the one thing I did want to note is that we do have a listing of all of the LPARs, and you'll note that we have, roughly 18 pages here of different LPARs, but I've, chosen to surface kind of the top 5, and again, this can be extended or changed depending upon what you're looking to accomplish as far as surfacing information. But just note that you'll be provided frame level consumption and usage information for all the associated LPARs for a given frame. Okay, so that being said, that is a highlight of what's to come for the CCR 1.5. If anyone has any comments, questions, or even concerns, I'd love to incorporate that feedback. So if there are any points that you feel need to be heard, please let us know, and we'll do our best to accommodate. And that being said, I appreciate everyone carving time out, and look forward to this next release. So that being said, Mike, did you want to take the helm and talk a little bit about anything else that's pending or outstanding?
Actually, no. I think CCR 1.5, the question from one of the participants is it out yet? The answer is that it's not out yet officially. We are engaging some early adopters, so some customers may have seen the reports. But the official release date is around the end of June. That's the best effort at this time. We're trying to get the 1.5 release out of the door at the end of the June time frame. So I think with that, I'll turn the webcast back to either Mary or Jim, and that's all for the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. We have a question from Gary Kalmus. Were there any changes in the way CCR functions beyond the additional views again?
Great question, Gary. So there is there is one thing I did want to point out is there is a patch update that we have taken advantage of, and one of the nuances that we were dealing with, or a defect, was when, as a user, if you attempted to modify the global settings so that your top rows was something other than 10, that wasn't persisting. So in that patch update, we have resolved that problem so that if you come and set this value to something other than 10, 20, 50, 100, or whatever, that setting will persist. So that's the only change to CCR. Other than that, all the other views are the same, so it will not be disruptive to what you have currently implemented in your environment today. Great question, Gary.
Lori, do we have any questions on the line?
As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. There are no questions at this time.
Okay, Mike and John, we have a question in the Q&A panel.
Okay, so the question is that do we have any readily out-of-the-box connector between eHealth and capacity management? If so, what release of eHealth should we use? Is there a connector between NIMSoft and capacity management? So I address the first one. We do have an out-of-the-box eHealth connector today. It supports eHealth 6.x. Currently, the out-of-the-box adapter only supports physical servers. And we have not been enhancing that adapter for the past 12 months. So if currently you have specific need, you may reach to me offline. We can talk about what kind of integration you're looking for through that connector. On the NIMSoft front, we are accelerating the connector. Right now, we don't have an out-of-the-box adapter yet from the product side. However, there are several services, field developers, data adapter out there that's pulling data from NIMSoft to be used by capacity management. So depending on your specific use case, some of the field developer data adapters might be able to satisfy your needs right away. We are going to productize some of the field developer data adapters in the second half of the year. We do have it on the calendar. Most likely, it will be around the September release. Again, this is a roadmap item. It might change, but it is a high priority item that we want to expedite as we release the product. So that's the answer to those two questions, Quentin.
Okay, one last chance for questions.
Again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1. There are no questions at this time.
Okay, well, thank you, John and Mike, for presenting today. We have a poll that rates the value of today's topic, and we look forward to seeing you again next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you for participating in today's conference call. You may now disconnect.